Do you want to know the quickest way to make a narcissist lose interest in you completely? There are 7 powerful steps that will make them walk away and leave you alone for good. And number 7 is so effective that they'll start avoiding you like a disease they can't afford to catch. Most people think the only way to deal with a narcissist is to fight back, argue, or prove themselves right. But that reaction is exactly what keeps the narcissist attached. It feeds their craving for attention, for drama, and for control. What truly works is becoming calm, steady, and completely unbothered. When you stop feeding them emotional energy, you stop being interesting to them. And today, I'll show you exactly how to make that happen, step by step. Before anything else, understand this. None of these steps are about manipulation or revenge. They're about protecting your peace, your power, and your sanity. Narcissists are emotional vampires. They survive on your reactions, your fear, your anger, your sadness, even your confusion. As long as you continue reacting, they will always return for more. Research and psychology both show that narcissists believe they own you. In their mind, you belong to them. You're not a person with autonomy. You're a source of emotional supply that they can come back to whenever they want. But here's the truth they never want you to realize. This entire illusion collapses the moment you stop playing your role in their game. When you refuse to react, refuse to chase, and refuse to explain, they lose the control they depend on. Now, let's go through the 7 things that make narcissists lose interest and leave you alone for good. And believe me, number 7 is the most powerful of them all. The first step is to stop giving emotional reactions. Narcissists feed on your emotions like fuel. They don't care whether your feelings are positive or negative. What matters is that you are still reacting, crying, begging, arguing, explaining. Every bit of this gives them exactly what they want. It's just like a child throwing a tantrum. When you give the child attention, they learn that tantrums work. Narcissists operate the same way, only they're adults with the emotional maturity of a toddler. When you react, they feel powerful. When you stay calm and emotionally flat, they lose that power. At first, they will try harder. They'll say cruel things, provoke you, pretend to change, anything to get a reaction. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no sadness, no excitement, they begin to deflate. What's the point of performing when the audience has stopped watching? This isn't about faking indifference. It's about reaching the point where their opinions and their drama no longer affect your emotional state. That is real strength. The second step is practicing true no contact. Many people think they're doing no contact, yet they still make tiny exceptions without realizing it. Real no contact means absolutely no communication, no curiosity, no checking. Experts identify 5 ways people accidentally break no contact: direct messages, indirect messages through others, checking their social media, driving by their house, or asking mutual friends about them. You have to close every one of these doors. Picture a burglar walking down a street. He sees a house with locked gates, cameras, bright lights, and a barking dog. He moves on, but an open window with no alarm. That's the house he approaches. Narcissists think the same way. They always look for easy access. If you make it difficult, they leave. That's why no contact must be complete. Block their number. Block their social media. Change your phone number if you have to. Tell mutual friends you don't want updates and won't give updates either. The hardest part, though, is this. You must also stop checking on them. Every profile visit, every tiny bit of curiosity breaks your own boundary. And somehow, narcissists always sense when you still care. But when you go fully silent, when you become invisible, they lose their ability to manipulate. They might test the boundary occasionally, but if you never break, they eventually give up. The third step is to stop defending or explaining yourself. Narcissists twist your words and manipulate conversations to make you feel like you must justify your behavior. They accuse you of things you never did just to keep you talking. The more you explain, the deeper you fall into their trap. When you defend yourself, you're agreeing to be judged. You're handing them the authority to determine your worth. But imagine what happens when you stop. If they call you selfish and you simply say, okay. If they accuse you of not caring and you reply, you're entitled to feel that way. Suddenly, their entire strategy collapses. Their manipulation depends on your need to be understood. When you no longer care how they see you, they lose the ability to hurt you. In personal relationships, silence is often the strongest response. When you stop explaining, you send a clear message. You don't define me anymore. Narcissists cannot tolerate that level of independence. The fourth step is becoming truly indifferent. Pretending doesn't work. Narcissists can detect fake emotional energy. True indifference means you have healed enough that you simply don't care what they do, say, or think. You stop checking their updates. You stop wondering who they're with. You stop hoping they miss you. They become irrelevant. To reach this state, you have to grieve the illusion of who you thought they were. You have to accept that the version of them you loved was never real. Once you process that grief, something shifts. You begin to see them clearly, not as powerful or mysterious, but as deeply insecure, fearful, and empty. Their cruelty comes from their own emotional void. Their control comes from fear. And once you understand that, you stop taking anything personally. Indifference isn't hatred. Hatred still feeds them. True indifference is neutrality. They simply stop existing in your emotional world. That's when you become truly free. The fifth step is focusing entirely on your own life. This is where real healing begins. You stop living in reaction to them. You stop posting to make them jealous. You stop doing things to prove you've moved on. You stop wondering what they'll think of your choices. Instead, you live for yourself. You start new projects, make new friends, follow your passions, and redirect your energy into your growth and happiness. As you do this, something incredible happens. You start glowing from the inside. Your energy becomes peaceful, confident, and fulfilled. Narcissists hate this because it destroys the illusion that you needed them. They prefer you broken, confused, and longing for their approval. But when you build a life that feels good from within, their influence fades. You stop comparing yourself to them. You stop competing. You stop caring. And that peace becomes your protection. It prevents you from being dragged back into their chaos. The sixth step is letting go of the need to expose or change them. This part is difficult because your sense of justice wants accountability. You want others to know the truth. You want the world to see what they did. But every attempt to expose them gives them more energy, because even negative attention is still attention. They don't care if you hate them. They only care that you still react. When you try to expose them, they often flip the script and play the victim. They'll convince others that you're obsessed, unstable, or bitter. They've likely prepared their version of the story long before you realized what was happening. And when you speak out, it sometimes unintentionally supports their lies. It's unfair, but it's the reality. Trying to change them is just as pointless. You cannot fix someone who refuses to admit they're broken. Sending articles, begging them to get help, explaining their behavior, it all keeps you tethered. Their healing is not your responsibility. Their awareness is not your job. You cannot teach empathy to someone who is terrified of feeling anything real. When you stop trying to change or expose them, you reclaim your energy. You remove yourself from their story and become the main character of your own. The real victory is living well, not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. When you are happy, healthy, and peaceful, they lose the power they once held. And now for the seventh and final step. Become completely emotionally unavailable as a source of supply. This is the ultimate form of freedom. It's not just physical distance, it's emotional detachment. They can no longer trigger you because you no longer seek anything from them. When they text, you don't respond. When they insult you, you don't react. When they flatter you, it doesn't move you. Your emotions stay steady, calm, and grounded. You give them nothing, not anger, not softness, not pity, not curiosity. You are like a rock, not cold from hatred, but calm from strength. When you reach this state, you don't just make one narcissist lose interest. You stop attracting narcissists altogether. They can sense when someone has no supply to give, and they move on instantly. You become invisible to toxic people and magnetic to kind, genuine ones. Your peace attracts people who match it rather than people who drain it. Becoming emotionally unavailable isn't about pretending to be strong. It's about actually being healed. It's realizing that your peace is too valuable to waste. When you reach this point, you can finally live a life untouched by their manipulation. These are the 7 powerful ways to make a narcissist lose interest and leave you alone for good. Stop giving emotional reactions. Go no contact without exceptions. Stop defending yourself. Become indifferent. Focus fully on your life. Stop trying to change or expose them, and become emotionally unavailable as a source of supply. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your peace, your joy, and your self-respect. When you follow these steps, you don't just push them away, you free yourself. The goal isn't to hurt them. The goal is to heal yourself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can ever do is walk away quietly and never look back, not out of hatred, but out of self-love. You don't owe them pain, you don't owe them reactions, and you don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. When you stop responding to their chaos, you become untouchable. You become the one thing they cannot control, calm, grounded, independent. That is when you truly win. Not by defeating them, but by choosing yourself. And if this message helps you, keep learning, keep growing, and keep choosing peace, because the life that waits for you outside their influence is more beautiful than you can imagine. Once you break free from the cycle, something incredible happens inside you. You begin to see just how much of your life was spent trying to earn love from someone who had none to give. You recognize how often you explained yourself hoping they'd finally understand, only to be misunderstood again. You realize the arguments, the confusion, the moments of affection followed by cruelty were never your fault. They were part of a system designed to keep you trapped in their emotional maze. Narcissists create environments that make you question your own worth. So when you finally walk away, the air feels lighter. The silence that once terrified you becomes your safe place. At first, it feels like loss. You miss the intensity, even the chaos, because your nervous system got used to it. That wasn't love, it was trauma bonding. It wires your brain to crave the person who caused the pain. But slowly the fog lifts, you sleep better, you smile without a reason, you feel safe again in your own space. That is the beginning of healing. The narcissist may think they broke you, but in truth they pushed you toward your awakening. They never expect their victims to rise. They expect you to stay wounded and stuck. But the greatest closure you will ever have is realizing you don't need closure from them. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to acknowledge the truth. You don't need them to say, "I'm sorry," because their apologies were always tactics, not sincerity. When you accept that, you stop waiting and start living. You take your power back. Healing from a narcissist feels like stepping out of a dark cave after years inside. At first, the light is overwhelming. But soon, you see colors you forgot existed. You rediscover laughter. You enjoy quiet mornings without judgment. You remember who you were before the manipulation and the doubt. You reconnect with the strongest parts of your soul. As you heal, you attract differently. People who drain you fade away because your energy no longer matches theirs. Healthy people recognize your peace and respect it. This shift is how you know you're growing. Peace becomes your norm, chaos feels foreign. You stop chasing intensity and start craving calm. You realize that real love doesn't hurt, it nurtures, supports, and feels safe. Narcissists cannot survive in that environment. They need confusion and competition to feel alive. Once you stop providing that, they lose interest completely. They will move on to someone who still reacts, still hopes, still believes the charm. Let them. You are not their savior. You are not responsible for their emptiness. You were never meant to heal them. You were meant to learn from them. Learn where you gave away your power. Learn how to set boundaries. Learn how to choose yourself. That's why healing from them is not just recovery, it's transformation. The version of you that tolerated disrespect no longer exists. The version that kept explaining has learned silence. The version that begged for love now gives it to themselves first. You have evolved. There will still be days when memories resurface. You might hear something that reminds you of them, but instead of breaking, you breathe and realize you survived. They no longer control your emotions. That realization is powerful. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you win. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you win. Every time you walk away instead of trying to prove something, you win. Every time you smile at yourself knowing you no longer depend on their validation, you win. That is real victory, quiet, deep, and personal. With time, you stop wondering if they think about you. You stop asking why they did what they did. You stop trying to make sense of something that was never based on love. Narcissists operate from fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of being ignored, fear of being ordinary. Their confidence is a mask hiding emptiness. You no longer need to understand them. Their behavior tells you everything. Your new chapter is about rebirth. You become the version of yourself they tried to destroy. The version that knows their worth, trusts their intuition, and protects their peace. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable and start living boldly, freely, and calmly. And that is when the narcissist truly loses. Not when you expose them, not when you argue, but when their name no longer triggers anything inside you. That is the final victory. If you're still in that place of confusion or pain, hold on. Healing takes time, but every day you stay no contact, every day you refuse to react, every day you choose peace, you move closer to freedom. Don't measure your progress by how quickly you forget them, but by how little power your memories now hold. You are not who you were when they met you. You are wiser, stronger, and far more aware. In the end, the narcissist taught you something valuable: how to trust yourself, how to guard your energy, and how to value your peace. Pain was your teacher. Healing is your graduation. You don't need closure from them. You've already closed that chapter. Now it's time to live again. It's time to build a life filled with truth, love, calm, and strength. A life where your heart finally feels safe.